Ghent in Belgium. Together with WIM, we have our own Rotarian, Anne Juko. Anne Juko is the CEO of Stanbic Bank since 2020. She has a solid 20 years experience as a finance executive in the finance industry. For being elevated to the level of a CEO, she has worked she has worked with the CIB in Namibia as a finance executive. She has headed the global markets in Stanbic Uganda and served as a vice president of sales and derivatives marketing in Citibank Kenya. Our own Juko holds a master's in strategic planning from Heriot-Watt Business School in Edinburgh. Together with these two, we have another distinguished gentleman in the names of Andrew Bugembe. Andrew Bugembe is the Chief Finance Officer, is the CFO of MTN Uganda. He has a 23 years experience as a finance executive in the telecom industry. Formerly, he was a CFO of MTN in Congo, Brazzaville, Ghana, Rwanda, Liberia. I'm glad to also inform all of us in the audience that he holds a Master's of Commerce and in Management and Accounting from Wollongong in Australia. These distinguished sons of this continent, these sons of this planet Earth are here to share with us. And I'm so happy that they will be moderated by our own major donor, Onyoini, from the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak, who is the CFO of Jim and Roberts. He has a doctorate. He is an accomplished CPA, and I'm very convinced that he will do us good. Thank you very much, President Frederick, for giving us an opportunity to listen in to the best of the best. And I'm grateful that everybody of us has been here to listen in to a topic. And I want to thank our own PDG Emmanuel Katongore, who introduced me to this team that I should bring to us to give us information about the upcoming MTN IPO. Over to you, President Frederick.
Thank you very much, DG Mike. This is friends, when my friend CP Sam will say, wow, is an underestimation. What more would you need to dig deeper into this MTN IPO? Friends, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak, but on behalf of the Rotary colleagues and friends, you are very welcome. And indeed, like it has been rightly said, it is a great honor and a great joy to have each and every single one of you with us. My friend and my brother, A.G. James, CEO of Jim Roberts, please carry us forward.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm really delighted to be here with these very distinguished panelists and all the participants on the call. You're very welcome. We're going to have this in two sections. So I'm going to start with the first section of the discussion. I just want to start with some kind of start with the panelists to give us opening remarks and one initial question which I will ask just to start the discussion. I will start with Wim and the CEO of Stanbic, of MTN, and what we'll want to know from him is just to share the details of the recently announced initial public order, the IPO. Everyone in town is talking about the IPO. Everybody is saving money to make sure they are not left out. So can you just kindly share with us the details of the announced IPO? Thank you, Wim.
Good morning, everybody. Dear Rotarians, good morning. It's an honor for me to be with you here this morning, early morning. I am talking to you from Jinja. We're here on a roadshow. going around the east. I have colleagues of mine who are in Mbarara, in Mubende, in Lira, moving around in other parts of the country. So you will bear with me. I hope nobody's going to call me in the meantime because I'm using my phone as a hotspot. So please bear with me if I go off. It doesn't mean that the network is bad. It just means that somebody is calling me. Okay. So as a way of introduction, let me quickly take you through. So about a year and a half ago, MTN, we renewed our license, our 12-year operating license. And one of the conditions of the license is that we were given 24 months until June 2022 to list at least 20% of the company on the stock exchange. So we are fulfilling this obligation by the existing shareholder, the majority shareholder, MTN International, who owns 96% of the company. They have decided to sell down 20% so that they reduce from 96 to 76, and so that the 20% of their shares are put on offer, which started the period. I'm sure you know the offer opening period started on 11th of October. And will continue until the 22nd of November. So it's a 6 weeks period, which is relatively long, because we also wanted to make sure we have enough time to inform people. It's been many years since the last IPO. And yeah, there have not been that many in any case over the last even 20 years. So for us to get really broadband participation, we felt that we needed to take sufficient time for education, for creating awareness, because we're not just looking at a few hundred or even a few thousand Ugandan shareholders. What we're really aiming for is to fulfill the spirit of the license obligation, which is localization. So it's not just about listing, it is also very much about localization. That was the spirit during the discussions of our license renewal, that we really felt strongly on the government side, the authorities, is that they wanted more localization. And the vehicle that we agreed upon was listing. So it is really an exercise of localization through listing. That's why we want thousands and thousands of participants. That's why we made it easy for our customers at least to participate using the mobile phone. That's also why we are giving 10% bonus incentive shares for Ugandan retail to participate. And that's also why on the allocation policy, we have taken a strong stand on a Uganda first allocation policy, meaning that any Ugandan individual retail who participates is given priority when it comes to share allocation. All of that is in line with the spirit of the license obligation, that first and foremost, we want Ugandan individuals to participate and to get their shares. Then second category are the professionals, then East Africans, and only then, if there would still be shares available, international foreigners can take up the remainder of the shares. So that really is all in line with, as I say, the spirit of the obligation, which is listing, localization through the listing on the USC. The details about the offer, in total, there are about 4.5 billion shares for sale, which corresponds with a total number of about 22.5 billion. That's the total company. So 20% of that is about 4.5 at a unit price of 200 Uganda shilling. The minimum uptake, okay, we had to put a certain minimum because CMA and USC were also concerned. Yes, the share price is 200 shilling, but we also don't want people to buy one share. Okay, that would be really very difficult also in terms of admin to enter in such a setup. So they put at least a minimum participation of 100,000 shilling, okay, which is 500 shares. And then if you use your phone, it's 550 shares. Okay, maybe something that I want to clarify from the very, very beginning of the discussion. There was a bit of confusion 2 weeks ago. The mobile money company, yes, it is a separate legal entity because of compliance with the NPS Act, but it is 100% part of the listed company. So whoever buys their shares in MTN Uganda Limited also gets your corresponding share in the mobile money activity that is run in a separate legal entity with oversight from Bank of Uganda, but it is 100% owned by the listed company. So all the economic benefits of mobile money are also part of the offer. So don't want to take all the time. So I think as way of introduction, I don't know if that is sufficient to get the discussion started.
Thank you, Wim, for that very, very good introduction. You've actually introduced some terminology which I've liked, listing and localization. Even if you forget everything that Wim has said, if you can just remember, listing and localization. So as Ugandans, you have first priority on this. So thank you very much for that, sharing that information. Maybe before I move to Anne, the CEO of Stanbic, let me first ask the CFO of MTN. Just another question that, what is the broader strategy as a company? That is to MTN, this to the CFO. What is the broader strategy as a company, and how will it deliver growth for the company and value for the anticipated shareholders in the short and medium term? You're welcome, CFO, to take us through that. Yes, go ahead. Have you got the question?
Hello. Yes, I got the question. Apologies, yes, I was just trying to get my connection right. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
yes, it's a pleasure. As we mentioned, I'm in Mbarara right now, attending various road shows. So yes, if we look at the various strategy for us to, take the company forward. So overall at MTN, where we're looking at providing digital solutions in the long run. But today, when you look at where MTN Uganda is and what the key growth drivers are, so you'll be looking more at mobile data and also mobile money, what we call FinCo. We use FinCo pretty much because the concentration right now is what we call the advanced revenues. So apart from the payment, cash in, cash out, now you'll be looking pretty much at payments, insurance. So pretty much the equivalent of what you see M-Pesa has done over the years. So we do believe there's great opportunity and potential in the mobile money business. For example, if you compare just across the border for Safaricom, where today Safaricom, if you compare their market cap and you compare that, versus the top 10 banks in Kenya, they're almost just close to that. So you can see the potential of where mobile money can grow from Uganda to where the likes of Safaricom are. The other great opportunity, obviously, is data. If you see where we are in Uganda, where internet penetration for mobile is very, very low, 6%. And then we see where our neighbor, the rest of the world is just within Africa. You can still see there's great opportunity. So as a strategy from a MTN perspective, we are looking at, you first of all need to understand your demographics. 50% of your population is are youth. Their focus is more of data and digital. So we need to position ourselves for the future. So you'll find that a lot of our investment, a lot of the opportunity, the main drivers are going to be mobile data and FinCo. However, we cannot forget voice. In Uganda, it is still an opportunity, or Sub-Saharan Africa, I would say. Given that, smartphone penetration is still low again in Uganda, over 50% of the phones do not have internet. So if you go into a new area of coverage, they'll just latch onto voice or mobile money. So that means we still also have an opportunity to still grow voice, to still grow at a declining rate, but will continue. So we believe these are one of the key areas that are going to drive growth forward for MTN Uganda.
Okay, thank you very much, CFO, for that. Thank you, Andrew. I think dear participants, you're getting the message very clearly. MTN is positioning itself to make sure it takes advantage of the rising population of the youth, going more into data, more into fintech, and I think that's a very good strategy that they're taking, and I'm sure it will take it a long way to go, and probably yes.
Okay, just to add.
Yes.
On the
yes,
question you asked, how much we're going to raise. So, as you might know, it will be what is on offer: 4.5 billion shares, over 200 shillings each. So that will make about 859 billion Ugandan shillings, or maybe you can say $250 million US. So that's the size of the ticket on what we're looking at, which makes up 20% of the offer. So plus minus is what we expect to raise in the market.
Wow, that's very good. Thank you very much. And members, I think you've got it. You better start looking at your purse and what you can buy, at least 100,000 to start and going upwards. Thank you very much, Andrew. That has been very, very useful. I would like us to go to Anne Juko, the CEO of Stanbic Bank. They are the transaction advisors. Stanbic SPG Securities are the advisors, the transaction advisors for this big IPO. So, Anne, what is Stanbic or SPG Securities' role in this IPO? And maybe for listeners who may not know IPO is the initial public offer. Maybe you'd also want to explain that a bit. Somebody asked me in our questions, which I'd asked earlier, to define what IPO is. So you can start from there, and then what is your role in this? And
good morning, Rotarian Gems. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. I will start by reintroducing myself because I don't get a chance to. It's not very rare. My name is Rotarian Anne. As you know, I'm a proud member of the Rotary Club of Muyenga Tank Hill. And I do that because it's still new and it's still exciting. So every chance I get to do, I always add that, because I am really proud to be and proud to belong to this distinguished group. So thank you very much for those questions. An initial public offer is essentially a way of taking a company into the public. So until now, MTN has been singularly owned by private individuals. On the 6th of December, we're now in the process. On the 6th of December, MTN will take a piece of itself and put it on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And that piece is the 20% of 4.4 billion shares that Andrew and Wim were referring to earlier. So an initial public offer is the process by which a company sells its shares to the public and lists on the Securities Exchange. So that is what the process is now. As Wim mentioned earlier, it started out as a licensing obligation, and it has since been turned into an opportunity for Ugandans. So why is Stanbic here, and what are we doing here? And here I speak about Stanbic Holdings with all our subsidiaries. We are here in 3 distinct categories, and we will play 3 separate but related roles. The first role is that which is done by Stanbic Bank Uganda, which is the role of technical advisor. When in the process of going from being a private company to being a listed company, it is a very long, arduous, and very, very technical process. Matters of valuation, matters of how you produce a prospectus, matters of what you disclose to the public to give them comfort to invest in a company is what we have been working with MTN behind the scenes. We've been at this for the last close to 9 months, getting MTN ready to come to the public. So that's one role that Stanbic Uganda plays as a technical advisor to this IPO. The second role, which is equally important, is the role of it is the role of lead sponsoring broker. That role is being played by our subsidiary, SBG Securities. And in this role, we lead all the brokers. A broker is the person or the entity that stands between you, the investor, and the issuer. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you want to buy shares of MTN, you can't go to MTN directly to buy those shares. And after you've been allocated the shares and you want to sell them, you don't walk into the MTN offices and say, these are your shares, give me my money back. No, you don't. You do these activities through the broker. So we are the lead sponsoring broker, and we are galvanizing and making sure that all the other brokers are working together to make sure that the customers have access, they have information, the disclosures have been made, the publications as required by law are out there, so that we can have an orderly, so that the customers can be guided into doing this properly. The third and equally important role that Stanbic, the bank, is playing is that of being the lead receiving bank. That when this money is being collected, Andrew mentioned that the offer is 895 billion Uganda shillings. This money will be collected from various sources, but it will sit in one place eventually. So it doesn't matter where you are. There are other two receiving banks. ABSA is a receiving bank. Standard Chartered is a receiving bank, but we as Stanbic are the lead receiving bank. And that money is, so we are in charge of settlement, making sure that when you apply, we give you a receipt that you have applied for your shares. That's number one. Number two, the reconciliation. But number three, which is also equally important, is the refund. Should this offer be oversubscribed, we are in charge of making sure that you receive the balance of your money and that you receive it in time and you receive it in the same module where you send us. If you send us money from an account, the refund will be taken back to your account. If you send us money via MomoPay, the refund will be sent back to you via MomoPay. So those are the three distinct roles that we play. First, as a technical advisor, making sure that this IPO is up to international standard. First of all, complies with the local law, but more importantly, is up to international standard. That's why you have seen the prospectus very detailed and really up to the standard we really do. The second role is sponsoring broker, making sure that you have access, you have information, and that the brokerage role is performed fully. The third role, which comes during and towards the end, is a collection, settlement, and refund, which we do as a lead receiving bank. Rotarian James, I hope that clarifies.
Wow, thank you so much. You've really broken it down for us. Thank you, Rotarian, and that has really been very nice. So it's very clear to me, and I'm sure to all the participants on this call, that Stanbic Bank is the technical advisor, the transaction advisor on this. You are the lead sponsor, making sure all the brokers are working together. And also you are the lead receiving bank. And also, of course, if in case of a refund, if it gets oversubscribed, you'll be very prepared to return this money to everyone. So if you are not given, if you don't succeed in this process, you will still get your money back through the same medium you use. That has been extremely clear. Thank you for breaking that down so clearly for us. So before I go back still to Rotarian Anne again, and of course I'm very excited that you're a Rotarian, and you know I really like to identify with you. Before I take it back to MTN, I would like to ask you again, because people are sitting here wondering, as an investor, what is in it for me as an investor? How does an investor benefit from this whole process? Can you just explain a little bit about that?
Thank you, Rotarian James. There are different ways in which to benefit from. I will start by the share part. As an investor, you have a choice of different asset classes. You can choose to keep your money under your bed. You can choose to put in a bank account. You can choose to buy a piece of land. You can choose to buy a treasury bill, or you can choose to, lend money to your friend. So whichever way those are the different types of asset classes where you as a person with surplus money or savings can put your money. Each of these categories has pros and cons, right? that if I choose to put my money in, let's say I buy a treasury bill, I will know from day one how much I'm going to earn. I will know where I can go buy it. And I will know that if I want my money back and I have to sell, I may or may not get the full amount of what I put in, depending on the mark-to-market part of the bill, right? So each investment class has pros and cons. Now let's talk about this specific investment class, which is the equity investment class, or buying of shares. When you buy shares, you're entitled to a piece of the company. In a manner of speaking, you become WIM's boss, and you are entitled to all the benefits of the value that MTN creates. MTN has created value in the past. It is our hope, and we are confident that they will continue to create value. We have no reason to tell us otherwise. So when they do create future value, you're buying into the future story of MTN. That for every additional unit of airtime they sell, you have a piece of it. And how do you get your value? You get your value in two ways. You get your value as a dividend at the end of the year. MTN has a history record of paying 3 dividends in a year. So you get, every time they pay a dividend, you have a piece of that. The second one is, should you choose to sell your shares, there may be a gain. Maybe you buy the share at 200 today, and within a few months, the share is at 300. You get a piece of that. That is value that you get. However, and I want to stress this, none of these value points is guaranteed because of the characteristics of this asset class, which is different from a fixed deposit. If you bring your fixed deposit to Stanbic, we will negotiate on day one. I'll give you 5% for a period of 6 months, and that is all you get. When you come at the end of 6 months, you will be paid 5%, right? It is fixed, it is guaranteed, it's there. And therefore it doesn't matter what Stanbic does, you do not benefit in the upside, right? If, however, you do a stock, you have the benefit of being able to benefit from the upside. Every time MTN grows, your value in that share grows. Your value in that, in what comes to you as a shareholder, continues to grow. So Rotarian James, there's 2 ways of getting value. One, when the price goes up, if it goes up, and the second one, the dividend payment which you get. And like people always ask me, but how will we know MTN will make dividends? At this point in time, we don't have a crystal ball, and we don't, as advisors, we guard this very, very carefully, and we give you, the potential investors, real information, the pros and the cons, so that you can make an informed decision. At this point in time, nobody, not Wim, not me, or anybody else, or even Andrew, who is in charge of the numbers, can tell you the exact amount of profit that MTN will make next year. However, we draw comfort from 3 things. The first one is a historical record. It's not an indication of where the future will be. It's not a guarantee of where the future will be, but it gives us comfort that if a company has been here for the last 23 years and has been one of the fastest growing corporates and has delivered value again and again every year, we have every belief that they'll continue to deliver value. So that's one area. The second one, which is equally important, is the governance around this, which is why you see there's a strong technical advisor involved in this thing. That from here on, MTN has always been run according to international standards, but now we are adding additional regulators. That the Uganda Securities Exchange imposes on MTN continuing listing obligations. That there are things that MTN will be required to do to safeguard your interest as a potential investor. First of which is reporting to you in a regular manner. That every 6 months, Wim and Andrew and the rest of the company will come to the public to tell us what they have done in the last 6 months. And in that meeting, you have a right to ask the questions. Why haven't you done this? What about this? What about the other? You as the investor. That's the second part. The third part, and equally important, is there will be an annual general meeting every year. Every single shareholder will sit in the same place, and they will put to task MTN. What have they done? Where have they? So in these 3 areas, in these 3 groups, in these 3 different facets, you're able to safeguard your interest, and you're able to see to it that the value continues to grow, and that your investment is taken care of, and that there are no reckless or decisions that are being made that cannot be explained or that are not of interest to you as the investor. I hope that clarifies Rotary, because it's important to say, I've given them my money. What are they going to do with it? How do I know? Do I walk into Wim's office every day? But no, there is somebody advocating for you. There is somebody taking care of your interests and making sure that you as an investor are always front and center in the decisions that MTN will take from here on.
Yes, Rotarian, and that has been extremely clear. And I'm sure the potential investors here are already understanding that there are two main ways in which you can gain the appreciation of the share itself when the company does well over the years, and also you'll be getting the dividends, and MTN has a very good record of paying good dividends. So let me take it, thank you very much, Rotarian Anne. Let me take it back again to Andrew. I know you're an accountant like myself, but without going details into the accounting, and you have been behind the figures, you know, you are preparing these financial statements every year. You are looking at the prospects of the company. You have just outlined a very good strategy. Can you just give us, without going into technical jargon, what has the journey been like without becoming very technical? What has been the journey? What has the journey been like? And what do you see with MTN as a company that can return high value share to shareholders? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I think what one needs to look at is, you know, the growth. Let us say, if you look at our revenue, so the journey over the last 5 years, we're looking at double-digit growth. You know, that's over 10% over the last 5 years. Of course, apart from 2018 when they introduced OTT and the withdrawal of mobile money, the 0.5%, where growth was below, you know, double-digit for that year. But over the years, you know, you have that revenue growth. And as I mentioned, that will be fueled by mainly mobile money and data. But however, beyond that, you know, we have a strong efficiency program where we believe cost leadership is key. You know, it's one thing growing your revenues, but you need to ensure that, you know, you're growing them, you know, profitably. So in other words, we ensure in our efficiency program that the cost savings we come up with are sustainable, not just once off. And, you know, if you couple that with increased investment, you know, we need to increase further to ensure, you know, 3G, 4G, fiber, and recently fiber to home, which seems to be a new niche in Uganda, you know, thanks to COVID. I think that's a silver lining. So overall, then you end up with, you know, your, I would say, profit after tax growing at about, you know, 20% if you look at last year. Now, if we look at it from a dividend perspective, our dividend policy is very clear that we will pay at least 60% of the profit after tax. So if your profit after tax on average, you know, has been growing about 18, you know, 14%. So even if it's just 60, assuming it was constant, you know, it will be 60 over a higher figure. So just to put it into basic and perspective or real numbers is last year, we paid about 153 billion, you know, and that was a payout ratio of just about, you know, 48. And that's because we had to pay license fees of about 370 billion. That's the 100 million US. So, you know, that would be a payout ratio of 48 this year, and going forward, where our policy in the medium term guidance is at least 60, where, you know, this year we've already paid 270 billion. So what we're guiding as a business, and, you know, for any investor, like Anne said, you know, we are restricted to be exact in the future on how much will be paid, what the PAT will be. So our guidance is more on the percentage going forward. But what's clear, what's more important is what's our track record? What are the drivers? And, you know, sometimes people ask me, you know, why should we believe MTN will continue growing further? And my question is, the day you believe you'll stop using data or mobile money or voice, then you can, you know, tell for yourself. And just look at one small example, 4 or 5 hours the other day when WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook was off. You could see just for a moment, the world felt like it was almost during election time. And this is just social media. So you can see the impact of data and the way of life that has changed. So we still believe that, you know, those growth areas are not yet fully, you know, matured, especially in Uganda. There's a lot more opportunity in those two areas.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I'm really happy that you managed to bring out these figures without going very technical. I think that's really good for our audience because we have audience from different backgrounds. Now, my last question. Sorry, same problem you predicted. Somebody's trying to call me and there's some interaction. My last question to him. I know that you are putting into the stock exchange 20%. That's very understandable and we have understood it. But I wanted just to understand from you, do you have already enough reserves? Because I believe that you are going to go into a very aggressive infrastructure development. At one time, I overheard that MTN was even thinking of 5G at some point and so on. Where is this money going to come from? Is it all going to be from internally generated resources? Or do you hope to float more shares in the very near future so that investors can hope that maybe you'll put on the market more than 20%?
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that question. It's very important. So the structure of the transaction is that the selling shareholder, which is MTN International, it's a secondary offer, so they get the proceeds of the sale of their shares. Okay, doesn't mean that the company as such, is losing money, but the proceeds of the shares that belong to MTN International go to MTN International. Now, we have committed for the next 3 years as a company, MTN Uganda, that we're going to continue to invest at least 1 trillion Uganda shilling for the next 3 years. We have basically invested 1 trillion over the last 4 years. So now we are slightly accelerating and we're going to do that same amount now over a 3-year period. Now that money, that 1 trillion that the company is going to invest in network expansion, rural coverage, more 4G, more fiber, ultimately also 5G. So that 1 trillion, okay, that is the company's money. We have a very strong balance sheet. We have been able to raise sufficient money in the past. Remember last year in 2020 when we finally agreed on the license fee, it took us 2 weeks, okay, to raise that money. A lot of banks were very, happy to enter, to borrow us that money because we have a very strong balance sheet. Okay, I hear concerns around, why is MTN Uganda not keeping that money? Why is it not a primary offer? Which would mean that you increase the number of shares instead of one shareholder selling. You would basically, as a company, increase your shares. And then that money would indeed go back to MTN Uganda Limited and not to the selling shareholder. But when you have a very healthy balance sheet, okay, you're in a very strong position to fund your investment with borrowed money. And ultimately, as shareholders or as future shareholders, that's also what you want. You want a strong company with a strong balance sheet who has the credibility in the market to raise money to do investment. As a shareholder, you don't want to be called upon and actually you as a shareholder making that money available. So it is because of the strength of our balance sheet, the strength of our company, that, financially, I'm not a finance guy. You'll need to ask Andrew for more details, but it's because of the strength of our balance sheet that it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make financial, logical sense actually to keep that money in the company. It is, good practice to have sufficient debt on your balance sheet so that, you can really fund your future investment with borrowed money. I think, Andrew, maybe you can give some further guidance around the actual debt levels. We also saw some figures on social media that are not reflecting the truth, or the reality. The debt that we declare is in terms of an accounting standard, which takes into account future leases. Now, if you look at the debts that we have with the bank, that debt is 380 billion. That is 1 year of profit. Okay, so that's how you have to look at our existing debt, which is actually low, and the capability, the capacity that the company has to repay the debt is, we're making profit of 375 billion this year, unadjusted, with a debt of 380. So that is 1 year profit. That's how you have to look at it currently. So our debt levels are actually relatively low already, and that allows us to borrow more money to embark on that aggressive investment plan of 1 trillion, which of course is required to drive the revenue growth. When Andrew is talking about mobile data revenue growth, that requires significant investment in the network. So as shareholders, the day we would stop investing is the day you have to start getting worried. Because in our industry of telecom, it takes a lot of money to make money. We need to continue investing, and that is the best, guarantee of our future revenue growth. The sites that we're building in 2021 are the new sites that are going to generate new revenue from new customers in 2022. So that constant cycle of investment and heavy investment in quality and coverage is basically the best guarantee for the future revenue growth that we are projecting.
Thank you very much, Wim. You've actually answered it very well. You talked about MTN having a strong balance sheet. You talked about, you're trying to make sure you balance, your debt to equity ratios are properly balanced. So I'll not go back to Andrew on that. I sometimes get excited by numbers because I'm an accountant, so I'm trying to avoid that. What you have done, you exactly explained what I wanted the listeners to get. Thank you very much, Wim. That has been very good. So at this point, I would like to put it back to the president. Of course, I had a lot more questions for the transaction advisor and so on, but those could come now because I see a lot of people putting up their hands. People are putting questions on the chat. So I want us to put this back to the president, and then you can give the appropriate person to take us through the questions and answers. And then I think that will be more beneficial. Thank you very much. So that it's not a one-way, but it's a discussion with the audience. Thank you very much. Back to you, CMP Frederick Chitakule.
Thank you very, very much, AG James and CEO, Jim Roberts Consulting, and to you, our panelists, and Wim and Andrew. Wow, so far we are doing excellently well. Thank you very much. The chat section is literally buzzing. I know that, the audience is all fired up with lots of questions, and we want to give them as much time as we can, much as we are hard pressed for time. It is now my privilege to invite you, my friend Paul Muganwa from SBG Securities Limited, to please weigh in, and let's receive all these questions that are in the chat section. Friends, we will focus a lot more on the questions that have been channeled in the chat section. But should you wish to voice your own question, you're welcome to raise your hand up, and at an appropriate time, we'll give you the platform. My friend and brother Paul Muganwa, over to you to guide us through the discussion.
Thank you, Frederick. Hopefully you can hear and see me clearly. As mentioned, my name is Paul Mugana. I work with Andrew in Stanbic Bank, and I've been part of the advisory team. I'll be handling the Q&A session. I encourage you to continue posting your questions. We'll go through them chronologically and try and provide you with as much information as possible. To get straight into it, we had an early question from Dami. The question, and I think this should go to you, Wim, how does one buy MTN shares? So it's a question really about process.
Thanks, Paul, for that question. I've tried to answer it while listening to Anne also via, the same chat box. So it's very easy for MTN Uganda customers. It's to take your phone and dial *165 *65 hash, and then you'll get a menu with two options. Option one is open your SCD account in case you wouldn't have one yet. In case you already have one from other investments, then you can skip that option one, and then you can go straight to option two, where then it reads apply for shares, and then you can choose, you enter again your SCD number, and then you can choose the number of shares that you want to buy, and then you pay using your mobile money wallet. Of course, the more, would I say, professional investors, by the way, I think we haven't mentioned, if you use that channel, you get 10 bonus shares, 10% bonus shares. So if you apply for and pay for 1,000 shares, you will actually get allocated 1,100 shares, okay? And for clarification, those 10% bonus shares are part of the 4.5 billion shares that are on offer. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. It works as long as your SIM card is registered with your national ID. If your SIM card would not be registered with a proper photocopy in our database of your national ID and only your name, you can go to service center and have your SIM card upgraded with the photocopy of the national ID in our database, and then you can also benefit. There are other ways, of course, of participating. For the more advanced, would I say, investor or the bigger investor, you can reach out to your broker. You can also go to the Easy portal from the USD and open your SCD account online. In any case, every Ugandan will get at least 5% bonus shares. So even if you don't participate using the MTN mobile money line, then you benefit from 10% bonus shares. But even for the ones who would go the more traditional way, or they are not our customers, they, as Ugandans, you will still get 5% bonus shares.
Thank you, Wim. Moving along quickly, given how active the chat box is. Anne, this will go to you. There have been a series of questions about what happens in the event of an oversubscription. The questions are about what assurances do Ugandans have that they will be treated as priority? What is the actual process? How will the issuer and the advisors handle an oversubscribed issuance? Over to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, Paul. A couple of things are there to be unpacked. The first one is the assurance that when you put in effective subscription is when you apply for shares and pay for them in cash. That is an effective subscription. After you have effectively subscribed, we then give you a confirmation via SMS or email to say, we hereby confirm, Rotarian Peace Tademo, you have subscribed for 1.5 billion. See, I'm wishing you good things, Rotarian Peace. So you have, you have confirmation of the money you put in and the shares. So that's number one. Number two, I also want to take the time to talk about the allocation policy and the dates. Between now and the 22nd of November, we are receiving applications. So everybody will have, you put in your subscription, we give you that confirmation until the 22nd. Then on the 3rd of December, we now announce the allocation policy. So for now, we're not doing anything, we're just receiving. You bring the money and the application, we put it all in one space. And then we start the allocation policy. The allocation policy, as mentioned, is Ugandan individuals first. And those Ugandan individuals, by the way, include SACCOs from a categorization point of view. I've seen a question on that, or investment clubs are in that. So they get the same incentives that Wim talked about. Just for being a Ugandan, 5 bonus shares for every 100. The second part is another 5 bonus shares if you use the MIPO, because there are also environmental concerns. This, by the way, is the first green IPO, and I know Rotarians are big on climate, so we encourage you to use a paperless-based approach when you do this. So 5 shares for being Ugandan, an additional 5, so a total of 10 if you use the MIPO *165 *65 hash. After we've covered the individuals, we go to the investor, to the Ugandan professional investors. So that is the second category of prioritization. The third category then becomes our fellow East Africans. And at the bottom of that, if there's anything left, we will then invite the internationals. Once we've done the allocation, we then go back to say that if you give, let's say you're like Rotarian Peace, you bid for 1.5 billion in shares. But we can only give you, and by the way, if the entire, we may explain in the chat, but I'll repeat that. If the entire subscription is taken up by Ugandans, we then have to come back to say, of all these Ugandans who have subscribed, how do we share it amongst them? In which case we'll say we'll guarantee a minimum of the first 5 million, and then we will use a system of what we call pro rata for all the others that beyond that. So I've guaranteed 5 million in case the whole offer is taken up by Ugandan individuals, which we don't envision. So we think all Ugandans will get what they have subscribed for. We go to the investors, and then we go to the East Africans, and then beyond that. So after that, after the listing on the 6th of December, we will then come back within a week or two. I think it's 2 weeks we've given ourselves to say, Rotarian Peace, you gave us 1.5 billion. We have only managed to give you shares of up to $1 billion. Here is the 500 million. That 500 million is coming back to the same account where the 1.5 originally came from. And that offer comes with our seal of approval and our seal, a guarantee from Stanbic that if you give your money, you will get a refund. I saw questions in the chat. How will we know? Are you not reconciling? We're reconciling on a daily or every day before we go to bed. We know exactly how much has been put in, by whom, and that person who has subscribed has received a confirmation. So you already, we have those 3-way steps. You subscribe, we receive, we reconcile, we send you a confirmation. We hereby confirm that Henry Rugamba has received X. Your subscription of X amount has been received. So we have that. And at the end of this process, if we have to give you any money back, you're relying on Stanbic to say, I gave you X amount, and this is how much you've given me. The balance will come back to the same account. Paul, I don't know if that clarifies, but I think it's, I'm worried about, and I want to give a chance for others to also speak.
I think that was clear. So still a lot of questions in the chat box, but I also see 2 hands up, and I'd like to give them an opportunity to engage. Mr. David Patrick Kaija, you may unmute and pose your query, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr.
David, we're struggling to hear you. If you could move closer to your mic.
The question in the chat.
Okay. I think we have lost David. If I could move to the next and
hello, can you hear me now?
David, is that? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, MTN is outsourcing a lot of services, including hiring space on transmission antennas they originally owned. They sold off these assets, preferring to hire than to own, and that reduced the asset base of the company. I would like MTN to explain the strengths of their balance sheet to sustainably finance expansions via loans. Is that MTN too geared with debts bigger than assets?
Wim, do you mind taking that question?
Paul, that looks like a very good question for my CFO. It talks about balance sheet and that. Andrew, are you still on?
Yes, I'm on. Okay, no.
Yes, please.
No, just to explain, okay, the issue of gearing. I think we need to first go back in the change in 2019 when we adopted IFRS 16, which included finance lease. So just to try and explain quickly and shortly, we lease our towers from ATC. We sold them off, which was a good thing, because today, instead of spending 100,000, for example, to build a tower, I'll lease it, and pay only 3 months up front. So your revenue from the site will even pick up the rent and much more, okay? Now, in accounting, because you have to recognize, okay, that the amount of money you pay ATC for, let us say, 10 years discounted needs to be recognized today. That will be considered as part of your net debt, but it's not your old school real debt that we get from our banks, which is only 388 billion. So to put it into perspective, last year in around Feb, we concluded, a 100 million US dollars, medium-term funding for 5 years, which is to finance the capex we spoke about, 3G, 5G, our capital. So to look at in Uganda and trying to look at our real debt, it's only 388 billion. And if you look at the two main, I would say, debt covenants, net debt to EBITDA, which is less than 2.5, we're at 1. Look at our debt service ratio, the ability to pay this debt, which is above 1.5, we're at 4.5. Honestly, we can actually take on more debt if there's an opportunity and we needed to expand. Now, when you look at our annual financials, it looks at gearing, including finance leases. So if you look at our debt in 2020, you need to remove 635 billion to get the old school gearing. So our balance sheet is very strong. I mean, look at the value of our asset and look at, the debt of only 388 billion. Like we mentioned, the debt we have that we are paying over 5 years is just profit after tax for 1 year. So no, we're not overgeared at all. It's, I think, a mix-up on the inclusion of finance leases. And I think it's causing some confusion, and not just here, even various investors we've engaged with. Thanks.
Maybe Andrew, before you take more, Paul, before you take on more questions, friends, as I said in the beginning, we are really hard pressed for time. I'm going to beg your indulgence that you allow us only 10 minutes to be able to bring this to a close. And Andrew, of the 10 minutes, I'll allow you 5 minutes to bring this to a close. Over to you, Paul, again.
Thank you, Frederick. I think what I will do, given the timeline limitations, I'll take some of the thematic questions that we can close off with. And there's a question about the potential impact on the dollar-Uganda exchange rate by externalizing the proceeds of the IPO. The question is, are we sensitive to this, and have we made appropriate plans to limit impact?
Thank you, and I will start. I will take this from the top and then handle the question on FX. We as Ugandans have been for the longest time saying companies cannot create value here and not leave some for Ugandans to share, right? And this has been a very big part of what we need to, what Ugandans have been asking for, that let us have a share in this. And this is what MTN is doing. We cannot have our cake and eat it too. We want a piece of the share, we have to buy it from the owner and allow the owner to take the profits. But that means that for the remaining period between now until perpetuity, when MTN remains in business, we as Ugandans have a share in that business. So that short-term inconvenience of taking out the money to give Ugandans a chance for a long-term value creation is the right thing to do. And our policymakers, we give them full credit for making sure that this policy is coming into play. So that's one part. The part about the exchange rate is a very sensitive matter. The Uganda shilling over the COVID period has been range bound between between the 36 to 3,500 range. And it has found equilibrium along those lines. For the longest time, we've had a stable currency, and the exports and imports have matched out, and demand and supply has sort of kept it in the same band. Will the MTN IPO have an impact on that? Certainly, it will create more demand in a short period of time compared to the supply that is available. There will be more demand because this money has got to go. It's not our money. They've given us our shares. They have to take their money. So they have to take this money out. But we have been very sensitive about this. And we have been working with the Bank of Uganda. Remember, the Bank of Uganda's primary objective is price stability. So they have mechanisms in place to ensure that when there are events of this nature in the market, they take the due care to ensure that the market remains stable. So we are engaging the central bank, and we are working with them to ensure that when this does happen, they are well prepared, and that the market they ensure stability within the market. So we are very sensitive about that, and we're working with the relevant authorities. But we are cognizant of the greater good of what this IPO means. And maybe just to mention also what this IPO actually means to the financial markets and Ugandans in particular. This is the first green IPO. So as an environmentalist, this is big on our agenda. I know it's close to many Rotarians' heart. It's green. You will not find trees being cut down to print the prospectus. You'll get it online. The application has been democratized that you can get it in the comfort of your home, your office, or anywhere else. You can apply on your phone. Anybody can apply. The pricing threshold has been lowered to the lowest minimum that every Ugandan can participate. Anybody with 100,000 shillings in their pocket can participate and be a part of the future. And I mentioned in the chat, you can buy in trust for up to 5 people. Who those 5 people are is entirely up to you, but you can't do that. The third is what it stands for the country. Our current market capitalization on the Uganda Securities Exchange is 3.9 trillion. MTN alone will add 4.4 trillion, more than double the size of the stock exchange right now. So it has many parts that it's taking. And when I see my friends saying, no, but they're going to take away exchange rate, that is one small price to pay compared to the value and the good that is coming to us as Ugandans with regard to this offer. Paul, I hope that answers the question.
I think what?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. Still a lot of questions, but I think we've run out of time. I will respond to one general theme of questions that I've picked up. Quite a few questions about how the price of 200 shillings was determined. I'll respond by speaking generally about how valuations for these type of issuances are explored and determined. It's really the same way that you would value any other asset. The first thing you look at is the earning capability of this particular asset moving forward. In the context of a company, a listed company, it's earning potential and its dividends more specifically. You then also compare the asset to comparable assets, either in a similar market or more importantly, in a similar industry, because that gives you a good sense of the market perception on value. So this approach is relatively universal, and often it yields a result that is reflective of value as determined by the market. I will pause there. Unfortunately, I think we've run out of time for Q&A. I thank you all for your very engaging questions. Wim has been responding to many questions in the chat group, so please look through it for whatever we've been unable to address. Back to you, Frederick.
Thank you very much, Paul. And to you, our panelists, Wim, Anne, and Andrew. Wow, you've done us good. And I cannot find any befitting person other than our District Governor-elect, Honorable Dr. Mike Sebaru, to move a befitting vote of thanks to our panelists as we try to wind this down. I know that it's quite an interesting discussion, and I know that in the near future, we'll get another opportunity, and then we can get to cover more ground on the same. Honorable Mike Sebaru, please do us the honors of appreciating our panelists. Over to you. DGE Mike, are you with us? Okay, I will then, maybe he has a network glitch. I will invite you, Past Assistant Governor, Dr. Timothy Basima. If you can, please help us appreciate our panelists.
Thank you very much, President, and thank you very much, our panelists. Rotarian and Duco, the dissection of the role of Stanbic in the IPO of MTN has been well put The categories who will benefit first have been clearly put, and there is no doubt that Stanbic Bank is trusted, tested, and ever dependable. It will do the great work MTN expects. To CEO Wim, of course, the biggest e-network that you lead has come at the right time when we have had enough decisions to make in the shares that MTN has put on market. The questions that have been in the media, in the social media, in the corridors of investments have been well put. You have answered them well. To the CFO, Andrew, a man of numbers, you've clearly put our investments to a good direction. You've clearly told us how we are going to be comfortable. The accounting you've put on board has shown us that the balance sheet is clearly comfortable for us to invest. Dr. James Onyoin, you've done us proud. You have well directed us, and you are always ever ready. Like the former brand of the battery series, we are always proud of you. And it's Paul who took us through the Q&A. Thank you very much. You are always spot on. And to the panelists, the certificates are readily available and will be presented to you by our president of the club at the right time. Thank you very much. Over to you, President.
Thank you very much, PhD Dr. Timothy Basima, for a moving vote of thanks that you've given to our panelists. And indeed, like you have rightly said, these certificates of appreciation will be presented to you physically at an appropriate time. Allow me right now, invite you, Dr. Honorable Mike Sevaru. You have 30 seconds to make your remark of appreciation.
Yeah, thank you very much. I was on the road and I got challenged, but I want to thank Timothy for standing in. But my brief word of thanks to the team is that this is the best thing that has happened ever since the debate on the MTN IPO commenced. You have assembled the most relevant actors within the ecosystem. The CEO unpacked the purpose and was able to interest us into the same, given the government and regulatory requirements of localization, which is a great thing. When you hear us talk about Buy Ugandan, Build Uganda, I think that goes in the same initiative. Andrew did so well in unpacking the numbers and justifying the dynamics and the potential benefit. And Rotarian Anne justified why she's the transaction advisor. Very eloquent, knowledgeable, and grounded, and very appealing and good to listen to. And definitely the moderator in the names of Onyoin did great. And Paul was at his best in moderation. And Timothy was a perfect substitute. And Mr. President, putting it together is the best thing you've done for us this Monday morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll pick it on right away from the point of putting it together. All this would never have been possible were it not by the hands given to us by the team known as the Morning Crew that is led by our very own VCC, Jaja. So friends, in the interest of time, allow us give a summary of statistics and we'll give the details in the chat room and in our runner that will run during the course of the week. Allow me invite you, Sergeant at Arms Stephen Wakasenza, to give us a summary of the statistics as we wind up this. Stephen, over to you.
Thank you, President. Let me pray that I'm audible. Today we have been blessed with 377 participants, 65 Rotary clubs, 10 Rotaract clubs, and very many guests, which included technos and iPhones. But President, I request that I read out the names of the guests who registered. And these are Madame Lilian Thenge, Madame Marion Onyoy, Mr. Robert Dira, Madame Ogwal, and Mr. Richard Kalunji. President, I hand back to you. The
Thank
club
you.
of the
Thank
day,
you.
President, I had forgotten the club of the day was Colombo on account of time zone.
Okay, thank you very much, our Sergeant at Arms. Friends, even the best dancer has to leave the floor, so we need to bring this to a close. But like I've promised, at an appropriate time, we'll arrange even a bigger forum where we can sit and we have ample time to delve much deeper into the dynamics of this very, very, very interesting and MTN IPO. I have seen so many comments, but I will read one comment from Rotarian Elizabeth, and it says, "Thank you very much for the very, very informative information. I am super ready to invest." And I think that goes to our panelists. But I want to move before my VCC, Jaja Muzungu, Sam Wanje, prepares to give us a vote of thanks. Allow me appreciate each and every single one of you. But I will not go without appreciating our Rotary leaders, starting with you, our future Rotarians, DRR Alan, DRR Isara. Thank you very much for rallying all the Rotaractors from District 9213 and District 924 to come and be with us. And to you, our past district governors, thank you very much. DGN Francisco Semwanga, thank you very much. Our very own DGE Peace Tarema, you've been very instrumental in the arrangement and coordination of all this. Thank you so very much. We really appreciate you. And our very own Honorable Dr. Mike Sewaru, thank you very much for always being with us. I cannot forget the Changemaker Assistant Governors. Thank you for being with us and for all your guidance. My comrades, the Changemaker Presidents, led by the President of Presidents, Donna, led by the President of Presidents, Kate, from District 9214 and District 9213 respectively. Thank you very much. I hope God will give us the grace for us daybreakers to return all these numerous visits that we have had. Friends, I thank you so very much. And like I have promised, I know we are hard pressed for time, but we will have ample time where we can delve deeper into this very subject. And I hope that the very able central colleagues that have guided us, our panelists, will be available to do like they have done today. Allow me to invite you, VCC Sam Wanje, to please give us the final toast as we bring this to a close. VCC Sam Wanje, over to you.
I hope I'm audible enough, colleagues. Thank you, President. I hope I'm audible enough. This has been a wonderful engagement this morning, and it has been a well-spent time. Friends, for all that insightful presentation we've had and the whole business of this morning, I wish to propose a toast to Rotary International.
Rotary world over. Rotary world over.
Thank you very much, friends. God bless you and make you a blessing.
Thank you. May he make you a blessing as well, my president. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rotarians. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Wim, and bye-bye. Thank you, Rotarian Anne and Andrew.
Bye-bye.
President, just like you said, you will really make an effort to visit other clubs. Please do. You know, the morning clubs get so many visitors, but the evening clubs don't. Thank you.
We try. The evening clubs are too many. You have to divide your attention to one. You can't be in all of them. That's the disadvantage.
I know.
Yes, we try as much as possible to bring back the visits, but you can only be.
Yes, you know, lawyers normally use a certain jargon. Why put you to notice?
Members, please help me. I want a question. If I've already opened an SCD account with one broker and I wanted to change to the one of Stanbic, how do I do it?
Are the experts still online?
I think you can use the MTN, the mobile money. Is it the phone option where you do the *165#
I used the phone I used the phone option because I didn't know much. There were 3 brokers that were given, and I chose Crested Capital. But now I want to choose the one of Stanbic SBG. How do I do? Because they said you cannot have 2 different accounts. How do I change now? That's what I want.
Try and do the one for Stanbic and see if it will accept. If it accepts, it's where you put the money. As long as you
Rotarian Ruth, do not worry.
capital.
I'm going to put you in direct contact with Paul Muganwa, who is from SBG Securities. And you can be assured he will 100% address your concern. I'm going to raise the same. I'm going to share your number with him.
Give us his number.
Thank you.
Okay.
Put the number in the chat room, President Frederick.
100%.
Put the number in the chat room.
He has put it there.
Yeah, thank you, President. Thank you, President, for the well-run program. It was interesting.
Yes,
President Chakule, thank you for the well-done.
Thank you very much, Mukuru Wechika. It is always an honor.
I had my 2 questions in the chat room, but they were answered generally.
Oh, wonderful.
Please, a number, President.
The number is in the chat room.
Are you happy with what has taken?
Who has the number for Rotarian in Namakole Elizabeth? Can you put it in the chat room?
Rotarian Ruth, have you received the number? Are you putting in the chat section?
President, thank you, President.
I want a very important number in the chat room. That is for Professor Elizabeth Namakula.
Has she dropped off?
I think so.
I have it, but does she allow to just put it in the chat room?
Yeah, put it on. Then put it on my number. I mean,
yeah, because we are talking of securities. Is she a professional?
But Elizabeth Namakula is still on call.
Yeah, then let's wait for her. But I was saying, if you chose Crest, that means you have